Can you enlighten our audience what Japan was doing in China?
And the population actually came from the present Korean peninsula as well as the Chinese.
So from here the story of the atrocities, different types of the atrocities have started. So what types of the atrocities are the crimes which Japanese forces committed in China?
That is the Nanjing massacre, in which actually they created camps, kind of concentration camps, in which, now the second part is as such not written. It is implied for the Chinese, whereas the other party, they take it. Why? Because it was not written. So
and subsequently they are putting some weapons and missiles in adjacent islands to the Taiwan. It shows that.
I was seeing one of your program, waging war in Afghanistan, Iraq, Middle East, all that.
Which compelled Japan to surrender unconditionally. That's mean in 1945, a streak of Japan's crimes or the crimes against our humanity came to an end. Japan committed crime against humanity across the world, but the crimes in the Southeast Asia and especially in China, they have no parallel. Almost Japan killed 35 million Chinese. It was equivalent to the genocide, because in 1936, China's total population was 471 million. It was not 1.4 billion. It was 471 million. And the other estimate shows that in 1947, China's total population was 461 million. It shows that the population decrease. It was not the, you can say, the natural process. It was due to the genocidal crimes by Japan in China that decreased the population. There are many other dimensions. And there are many other dimensions that Japan has committed the crimes. For that purpose, today we have invited a very renowned scholar on the subject who has studied very closely the Japan's atrocity and Japan's different types of the crimes in China, and how China responded. And we will be discussing that about that concept, and moreover we will be discussing one more subject, because at the time of the surrender Japan committed that it will never go for the militarization again, but recently the Japan has started to go for the militarization. So we will discuss these two things. For that purpose, we have invited today Vice Admiral retired Dr. Ahmed Saeed Khan. He is a very well-known scholar on the subject. Recently, he was also heading National Institute of Maritime Affairs. He spent time in China and worked very closely with the Chinese different organizations, and especially he was posted in area where the Japanese committed the crimes. So that's why we have invited Dr. Ahmed Saeed Khan for our today's show. Welcome to the show, sir. Sir, we will start by when we look at the different types of the crimes that Japan has committed during the World War II and before the World War II. Can you enlighten our audience what Japan was doing in China?
Thank you very much, Ramesa, for inviting me over. This is, I think, one of human history, if we see one of a kind of crime which not only once, it was repeatedly committed on the mainland of China. So it has a long streak of historical facts which goes back the first Manchurian invasion, the late part of 19th century, when the first invasion, and that was before that. Actually, this all started off with a kind of a sense of superiority which at that time the Japanese emperors had inculcated into their society. Okay. And before that, if we go about 200 years before that, they had gone into isolation mode, and in which they reinvigorated their own society. Because prior to that, if we go back to a little more, that is start of 300 BC to 300 AD, that is the time when this Japanese island was, the population started coming into this area. Okay. Earlier on, there was no population. Okay. And the population actually came from the present Korean Peninsula as well as the Chinese.
Okay.
So that's the reason the original population which came into this area, later part of the time when the Yamamoto imperialism started off, they got the education from the mainland Chinese. They imported the language, they imported the culture, they imported their governance also. So the first governance model was taken from China.
Okay, so Japan, the first governance model was taken from China.
So on the later part of the day, once the Chinese, the Japanese, they started rising and they modernized themselves with, they were actually first contacted with the Dutch modernization model.
Okay.
And then they got into the French model, then the UK and as well as the US.
Okay.
So with this modernization, they became a very modern country, and with that they first went into a reinvigoration of their own society.
Okay.
They came up with the samurai concept, to create a sense of superiority in their society.
They imported everything, they borrowed everything, and then they started to show that machoism, and they started to show that they are the superior to other.
Exactly, and then they went into, although Confucius doctrine was also taken from China, Buddhism also taken from China, but in this process then they started repelling this and started creating their own civilizational pride.
Okay.
And in the same time they also modernized their military and they started expanding. So then it is the first time when they invaded Manchuria, that was the first expansionist venture which they carried out, and they slaughtered a lot of
Manchuria
Koreans.
is located in which country?
It actually they invaded the Korean peninsula and then they went up to Manchuria. Manchuria is the close to Port Arthur. Sorry, it's north of the area which is north of Beijing now, Harbin area, and this whole area is called the Manchurian area.
Okay.
So that's how they started expanding there. But at that time, then again a reversal was met, and but at that time the Qing dynasty was actually a weak dynasty. So they went into agreement, and within that agreement they gave the access to Korean peninsula to Japan, and they the Japanese gave access to Taiwan. So that's how first arrangement was made.
Japan also came in the Taiwan in that era. So from here the story of the atrocities, different types of the atrocities have started. So what types of the atrocities are the crimes which Japanese forces committed in China?
Actually it was mainly of two types. One was against the forces and second was against the society.
Okay.
So in your intro what you were talking about, that was in 1930s, the second time when they invaded and they went up to the Beijing, they encircled the Beijing and they came towards the Nanjing also. That is the Nanjing massacre, in which actually they created camps, a kind of concentration camps in which the ladies were taken in to serve their soldiers. And in that, of course,
sex slavery.
Sex slavery was one of the, and they also carried out mass killings of the young lot, so that the resistance does not come into play. So this is the Nanjing massacre, which historically China has been, they had brought this to the notice of ICJ also. And as you indicated that I was in Nanjing for a while, studying over there. At that time, some of the ladies, at that time I believe there were 6 to 7 ladies with those who were still alive.
Okay.
So they used to be presented on the television, and they were the ones those who had...
Did you have any chance to meet them or interact with them?
No, I couldn't. Why? Because they were too elderly. I think they were well protected also at that time. But they had a time to come to the press at times, and there was a museum which was later during the President Xi's era now. It has been totally revamped, and it has given the total outlook of what atrocities was actually committed by the Japanese forces in Nanjing. Common cliche was that less water used to flow in the drains and more blood used to flow in the drains. That was the type of atrocities
that was the
committed at that
atrocities
time.
and imperialist thinking process, the thought, you can say, vision of Japan at that time.
Exactly. This is what the history has recorded in these areas.
So it's like when we talk about the Baghdad and other things, the blood was flowing in the rivers. So they were doing the same thing. Japan was doing the same thing in China. So I have also read somewhere, so they invented new methods, biomethods, to impact the people, to inflict the people with different types of the disease. Do you have any encounter with those people there?
Yes, of course, that is also recorded, but evidence is a little less what is available. But of course, at that time, the chemical use of chemical and biological agents was very, very. It was into its startup. So the enormity of that usage and its damage to the social society is yet to be established by the neutrals. But the Chinese, they did record this fact also.
I was just reading few documents from the Russian side and some other sides. So many crimes which were committed by Japanese was covered up by the USA, because they took that all knowledge with them, and Japan was using the human as a live, you can say, the experimental bodies to infuse them with different types of the things. So that is a history. So where the Japan has committed the genocidal activities, as I mentioned in my intro. So according to the Chinese documents, they have killed 35 million Chinese people. And at that time, the population was only 471 million people. It equivalent to the, you can say, genocidal activity. So at that time, it was decided, so Japan will not go for the militarization again. So, but you have seen in the recent past, so Japan is moving on the same path. Why?
A little connect up, I would say that as you are progressing, the first contact after the isolation of the Japan in history, it was made by the Americans. The American Commodore, he landed on the shores, and then they interacted, and first treaty was signed with the Americans. And within that, North superiority was also inculcated into the emperor's mind, as we have Greater West at the moment. And that's the reason Chinese, they are coming up with the South Asian or southern countries representation, which they are saying that they should be represented well. That includes the South America, Africa, and Asia. All these countries, because they make up in population about 80% and about 40% of the total GDP. But as far as the representation into the UN, that is very less.
In UN, in IMF, World Bank.
Exactly. That is the. So, coming back to your question that.
Militarism. So it was prohibited for Japan to go for that.
Exactly, and that was actually embedded in the post-World War II, after the defeat, as you said so, and there was a San Francisco Treaty signed in 1951. Within that, these all mechanisms were embedded, like Treaty of Versailles. The similar kind of treaty was signed here as well. But now, why they have started coming up into this? Because they are seeing a global.
Sorry, when this treaty was signed, so it was also committed. So Japan and other forces, which they will get, Japan, which have taken over some parts of China, like Taiwan, it will be handed over to China. So why it was not handed over to
Actually, the treaty that was in 1945 after the World War II. It was embedded into the treaty that the parts of the Taiwan, as well as the first was that the Japan will renounce its outward all occupations, and Taiwan and its islands both are written. They will be handed over to China. But formally, there was no treaty or any arrangement in which it was to be signed. This is a ambiguity for some of the historians.
For the benefit of
which they take the benefit. Otherwise, the treaty is very clear. Why? Because at that time, if you recollect, there was internally within China, a revolution was going on between the communist and the nationalist. The China Communist Party, led by Chairman Mao, as well as the Kuomintang Party. So this, about 4 or 5 years, it was a turbulent year. By the time they settled, the Kuomintang Party got defeated. The Chairman Mao took over, and in 1949, the CPC took over the Chinese reins. So at that time, this moment was actually passed. So it was taken as a fait accompli that this is part of China. And that's the reason on later part of the day when the UN in 1971, they passed a resolution that PRC, People's Republic China, is the sole body to represent Chinese.
Yes.
And Taiwan is its province.
Yes.
Now the second part is as such not written. It is implied for the Chinese, whereas the other party, they take it. Why? Because it was not written, so the Taiwan remains an independent entity.
That's where it seems they intentionally created this problem. Anyways, we move forward. So there's militarism, because that is very important for we have seen for the last 2 decades. So Japan is going for the militarism with an accelerated pace.
Now there is another important aspect, which is China, American TRC, which is the Taiwan Relation Act in 1979, which they took into effect. Now this has some ambiguity in it. Number one, that it restricts Chinese to use of force towards Taiwan, and it also restricts Taiwan to declared independence. So within this paradigm, the Taiwan is actually playing, and the US comes into play. Now, as the Japanese are ally of US, so that is the baseline from where they are actually.
We will discuss this because after Japanese Prime Minister's statement, there's some
exactly.
That.
So now increase in their budget is actually the overall global order, which is in disarray, and we are going into the direction of multilateralism. So Japan, which had a security overarching pact from the USA side, is feeling now the heat of it. So that's the reason they came up with increase of budget by 2%, which they said they will be doing it by end of 2026 or 27, but 28, sorry. But now the Prime Minister, which has come into play, she has said that we are going to do it now, right from the beginning. So this is a kind of budget which is third largest budget after the US and China, which they would be spending to increase and enhance their military prowess.
But the thing is, because they were prohibited not to go for the militarization, and it was prohibited by the Allied forces led by USA. And under the nose of US, why they are going for the militarization, and why they are being allowed to do that?
It's a very, I think, interesting question in a way that always treaties and laws and languages, they are there to be manipulated by the governments. So within this, actually, the Chinese make of their forces was after that San Francisco Treaty, they were made only self-defense forces.
Japanese.
Sorry, my apologies, the Japanese. So there were these Japanese self-defense force. But now they came up with that because, and they take the lead from the Article 51 of the UN as well, which is the self-defense, which is the right of all the countries. So now they have changed their mode into that now we have to defend ourselves because the external aggression, which they take the China to be a challenging force in their area. So they taken this into a self-defense area.
But China is not threatening them at all.
Exactly, that is not. But the controversy over the islands, especially the islands which are very close to Taiwan, the Senkaku Islands, on that they have issue. Why? Because historically in the Qing dynasty, although there are about 6,000 plus islands around the Japan, on which they have disputes. On the northern side they have with Russia, on the middle side they have with the Korea, and China, and Taiwan also. Taiwan also lay claims on these islands. So these islands are actually very close to Taiwan, which is about 120 miles. So they tried to place certain war gadgetries over there for the monitoring of these areas. That was taken as an intrusion into the Chinese territory, because if Taiwan is the part of China, its territorial claim and its all islands are its.
And it is, because historically all the evidence suggests that Taiwan is part of China.
So the Chinese forces, they went around, they carried out certain maneuvers. Their aircrafts in these areas, the Japanese aircrafts were challenged in the airspace. So this is how the things have started boiling up.
So that means again, so what Japan is portraying, that is not the reality.
Exactly.
So Japan is again trying to be the aggressive. So that's why they are going for that. So, but what makes me to understand and make me more worried about that. So this militarization or the military mindset, aggressive mindset, the imperialistic mindset, it does not only belong to the political leaders. It's a people. We have seen a few days back, so Tochi on the this is command dissolve and got an overwhelming majority, which shows that their mindset is going back to imperialism. So this mindset, so what will be the implications of this mindset on the regional peace?
I think in the Eastern Asia side, nationalism is again on the rise. If we see in the Taiwan, the existing party, they also won their vote on democratizing the peninsula, the island, as well as not accepting Hong Kong type of arrangement. That means two model, one country solutions. So similarly, at the same time.
But there is the point, sir. So nationalist force, I was reading their data. So a few years back they have the 61% vote, but now they have the 41%. So their vote is on decline.
Yeah, actually the current make of the government is a minority. If you see, the more seats are with the opposition, but somehow they have manipulated to make the government. You're right that their base is a little less. That is perhaps over the period working by the Chinese, because they don't believe in invasions. They believe in reconciliation. And that's how they reconciliated with the populations, giving them broad openings, their integration into their economy, integration into their culture, integration into their military, integration into their legal systems. So of late there was few Chinese, they went to the Taiwan, they made certain pollution in the areas, and they were tried by the court on the basis of the Chinese laws. So that is the kind of mechanism. So China is giving a full space for integration. Of late, I think 2005, they had the anti-succession law passed by the Chinese. And that is that if required, first it says that in the both sides of the people, politics and the parties, it is on them a kind of legal implications now that they should work for the reunification of both the parts. Peacefully, of course. But the second part is, if they try to get out, separate, declare independence, the non-peaceful means can be used. So this is another part of late which was introduced, on which
that is that China can decide, it's their part.
Exactly.
But the problem with Japan, so if the people are showing the interest in the imperialism, so will it impact the regional stability, peace in the region? Because that imperial mindset, they killed 35 million people only in China in the past. So what do you think that mindset will bring for the world, and especially for the region?
Now, the 2-3 dimensions, I would say that the Japan again, in 2010, although the Chinese surpassed, because Japanese used to be the second highest GDP country in the world, but in 2010, China surpassed that. So still their imperial mindset of expansionism is still there. And that is definitely first towards...
And they are the mosque of peaceful, and Japan is just a mosque.
Exactly. So the revival, I would say, the revival of imperialism, which was during the Yamamoto's time, or maybe historically when they had the machoism going on into their society, the superior nation, rising son of the East. So that's what their logo
is. Like the German Nazis.
Exactly. So this current regime which came into power, they actually came into power on these slogans. And as you
and they are, rather than they are ashamed of their past crimes, they are going to the tombs of those people just to honor them. In Japan, I have seen that people are going to the tombs of the peoples which were the who has committed the war crimes.
Actually, this is another thorny area in which is historically between the China as well as Japan, that visiting those shrines of war criminals which have been declared by the UN, and they go and they boast their crimes. So that creates an unrest into the Chinese side as well. So although the current Prime Minister, she didn't go as yet after taking over, but their lineage, the Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister, if you recollect, in 2006.
Who started the militarism altogether.
Exactly, who actually started off, and she is taken as a step ahead of the same lineage. And by the way, just to link around, he was the same Prime Minister who came to India, addressed their parliament, and then he gave the idea of Indo-Pacific reunification. And that is from where the Indo-Pacific strategies and all these started coming
Although
up.
it's Asia-Pacific.
Exactly, it is an Asia-Pacific. So this is the original.
And you are expert on that, someday we will talk.
Maritime.
As Admiral, you have served on that, you have practical knowledge. We will talk about these things someday.
So this is a revival on the political, not only, we cannot say that is a political jargon on which they have won the elections, but their subsequent actions are actually depicting that they are coming up militarily, and they are going to challenge in these areas the old issues which are although lingering, but they were peacefully settled in certain areas. So this is where your question based, that yes, it is going to ultimately destabilize. It has the potential if the Japanese government pursues the similar lines, and they defy all the previous one-to-one agreements and communique between Japan and China, then it is going to be tough ask to maintain the same behavior from the Chinese side as well.
So it's not about their revival, as they see when they kept their shrines of war criminals and they are paying the homage going there. That's mean the mentality was always there. They were just waiting for the perfect moment just to revive. So from Abe, you are talking about, he started this militarization process again and moving step by step. But now when we see the election result, from here, so where we are moving, because of he got the majority vote on the same slogans of the nationalism and the conservative policies and against anti-China rhetoric and these things.
I think she just taken over. That was in the beginning of this year. Apart from 2-3 acts, yet to see how they are going to interact politically with the mainland China. Because on this very incident of her statement in the parliament, where she said that any force utilization by China on Taiwan is going to be an existential threat to Japan, and Japan will react in its kind. That means they will also use the force.
Yes.
So it was very negatively taken in mainland China.
And it is negative.
And first reaction was that the Japanese Prime Minister has crossed the red lines. So because Taiwan is their red line on anything who talks about other than one China policy is their red line. That's what they communicated to US as well. So I think this is very clear that so that is the reason I think on this the China again went a little peacefully in a way that they first diplomatically gave a rebuttal, then they asked the government to government communique that they should retrieve this statement and apologize, which they did not. This is unfortunate. But she gave a little cover to that this was a hypothetical question. It is not a so this is just to cover it up. Otherwise, underlining currents are that they are going ahead with their military preparations and everything. So
and subsequently, they are putting some weapons and missiles in adjacent islands to the Taiwan. It shows that. So they are taking actions now.
Actually, that's what I was referring to, that they maneuvered to put they tried to put some military equipment onto these islands, these Senkaku Islands, which, as I said, which is very close to the Taiwan. So this is again, but beside that, of course, from the Chinese side, so far it has been a peaceful, a little change of pace in terms of that the economically some I won't say the sanctions, but the dual use technologies, which about 62% of Japan is met by China. So that has been,
and a huge population from China go to Japan for tourism.
Exactly, the tourism has been reduced. The import from Japan, especially in the fishery side and maritime side, that has been reduced. So this is just to give a space the both sides to reconsider their actions, especially the Japan side.
So otherwise, if she has not stopped here, she is not stopping here, and the Japanese people are showing the support for this anti-China rhetoric and policies. So what do you foresee in the region?
I think there is going to be a rise in terms of some close quarter situations at sea. Why? Because now if the forces are going towards those disputed areas, like now China has declared an ADIZ, which is Air Identification Zone, over these islands. That means no Japanese aircraft can cross over these areas. prior identification. So this is another passive way of telling them to stay away. But the problem is, I think, again, not only Japan, it is the collaborative forces from the West, as well as some collaborative forces from the West, and primarily the US. Because they are doing the freedom of navigation operations at the name of keeping the seas open. So in that, they go into the Taiwan Strait also, they also go into the other areas which are legally under the UN Clause 82 part of China. So here the problem lies. Why? Because UN Clause 82 has not been ratified by USA.
Oh, all old tactics.
Exactly. So rest of the world, about 162 countries have ratified it. It's only about 8 countries which have not. So this is a dichotomy, a gray area, ambiguity in which they are going to play and test out the, I think, nerves of the Chinese diplomatic and military leadership. That is what I foresee.
And it can threaten, I think, when I was looking at that, so it can threaten definitely, but rather than it will definitely threaten the peace and stability in the region. Because once the West or the Japan cross this red line, so China will not tolerate. And this is very clear. But my last question to you, sir, this is a very specific question, and as I started with, so Japan was prohibited from going to military, build up the military. And the same USA and the West is helping them to build the military. And US is sending billions of dollars weapon. And a few days back, so US also showed that they will also provide the nuclear cover to Japan. So why, on the one side, you are saying something else, you have different types of agreements, on this ground, you are doing something else. So what is the objective of US policy here? Either they want a conflict in the region, and Japan is assisting them, or something else?
The rise and fall of civilization, I would say. So why? Because the rise of China, I was seeing one of your program with Dr. Ishfaq, in which he had said that over 10 years when the America was waging war in Afghanistan, Iraq, Middle East, all that, so it lost about $13 trillion. At the same time, the China was rising, and it crossed the similar amount of in their GDP. So now, once they woke up, the first thing they had in their mind was a lost decade. That America has lost a decade, specifically overlooking the China. So now the Chinese parity with the GDP at the present, it is 1 to 1.5. So China has started asserting its role into the international arena. So now if China has to be curtailed, contained, so what do? This is containment policy, which started off after the Pivot Asia, Obama, then Indo-Pacific, and all these it rolled on to. But now of late, I think in the Munich Security Conference a few days back, one thing was which actually hit me. It was not into the Secretary of State, the Marco Rubio's address was very calculative in terms of its language. That they tried to reunite with the civilization of West, number one. Earlier on, they were actually bullying the European Union and everything. So this is a little retreat, partly because of the European Union access towards the China side, as well as a pact with India on economic side. The second thing is that US wants to, in the containment policy, they went for the Quad. The Quad did not go ahead as it was planned. Only Japan was actually in the forefront. So now, in connivance with Japan, they want to, if they want to link up security issues in this area, of course, they will embroil China's progress. because until unless China is not militarily bleeded, like the USSR in Afghanistan, a prolonged engagement, so their rise will continue. So I see this is one of the tactics in which they want to bring about certain conflicts in this area, so that close to its own shores, China remains embroiled, and its economy and its rise and its growth rate retards. This could be one of the reasons.
I think it's you are right, because they recently have seen, so the NATO is also trying to open an office in Japan, and Japan has nothing to do with the NATO.
But another aspect is the largest assembly of US forces outside USA is in Japan, around 50,000 plus.
54,000.
Exactly. It's a 50,000 plus troops plus hardware, all military is assembled up there.
I think the US is charging $2 billion per year for that state.
Exactly. And second is the South Korea. Third is the Philippines and all
Germany,
2-3 other
Germany
countries.
is another major. We are
But in this area, all these countries, they have a complete setup to ignite anything which goes, which can create a conflicting situation in this area.
And it's this statement of the nuclear war, the nuclear umbrella. That
Umbrella, exactly. That is
so that again encourages Japan to go for the war.
Exactly. So this is how I think the overall make is coming up. And secondly, why the Greenland issue was taken up, for the very reasons that if the trade through the northern corridor is checked and restricted, that is the shortest possible route after the climate change which is appearing. So that was going to be for China's export to the greater West.
As you are talking about, so the US and other Western countries, they are trying their utmost to create a conflict here to contain China. And for that purpose, they have identified Japan. They have achieved their objective in the Europe by engaging the Russia with the Ukraine. Rather will say they sacrificed Ukraine for their politics, and now they are trying to sacrifice Japan for their politics. And here is a question. So will the Chinese leadership have that wisdom to understand this politics? Or the Japanese leadership will fall for the Western policies and the traps, and they will do what the West want them to do, and they also fall the trap of the hegemonic aspirations, imperialistic aspirations. If Japan fall for the hegemonic aspirations, imperialistic aspirations, or to the Western trap, so definitely there will be a conflict, which will not only be the dangers for the region, but also it will be existential threat for the Japan. So I believe, so Japan will try to act as a wise. Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed Saeed Khan Sahab, for spending your time. Inshallah, next episode we will come with some other program. Till that time, Allah Hafiz.